Welcome to Reporter's Notebook, where we talk to the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the stories breaking on their beats. I'm Jim Antle. I'm joined today by Energy and Environment Reporter Breanne Deppisch. Breanne, springtime now, but summer's coming. And when you know what summer means, a lot of times it means high gas prices and certainly sensitivity to gas prices. What might the Biden administration do if we see high gas prices again? Aren't their options a little more limited?
Their options are definitely a lot more limited, Jim. So to be sure, the Biden administration has fewer options at its disposal in the event to respond to high gas prices in the event there's some sort of price hike this summer. We're also not, I guess it's worth noting at the outset, we're not nearly where we were last spring.
Right.
In terms of gas prices, that's in part because of oil prices, which are a lot lower because of lower manufacturing demand from China, as well as just kind of fears about the U.S. economy, things like that. But so the low price of oil factors in a lot to gas prices, and so they're expecting prices not to be nearly as high this year. But in the event there is a price hike, Biden definitely has fewer options. That's because we have a depleted strategic petroleum reserve, which Biden ordered the historic sale of 180 million barrels last year, and also because of OPEC Plus, which has really signaled just more indifference to the Biden administration.
Right, they really haven't done him many favors.
They haven't. On multiple times they've actually ignored his requests to increase production. We saw in October they actually just completely bucked that and made a major production cut, which they followed in March with another one. So we could see more of that depending on where OPEC Plus sees oil demand going.
So another area where we're talking about sort of production and some things that we could do in the energy sector, this is a big debate going on Capitol Hill over permitting, particularly in the Senate. And the man who decides a lot of what goes on in the Senate, Joe Manchin, he's really on a tear about permitting. What's the status of these talks?
Yeah, so Joe Manchin is certainly on a tear. He introduced new legislative text on energy, on a permit reforming bill. This is something that he has pushed for a very long time. It's also the second time he's introduced it. He introduced multiple forms of it last session. He followed up this time with new legislation that would basically, it's pretty similar to his previous iteration. It would seek a 2-year permitting deadline for all federal projects, and it sort of and it would also call for the Biden administration to approve the $6.6 billion Mountain Valley Pipeline, which runs through his home state of West Virginia.
Right.
Importantly, the White House has signaled that it is open to supporting that. John Podesta said in a recent interview that they are willing to throw their support behind it.
Sure.
They really want to get this across the finish line because, remember, this was really critical to getting Manchin over the finish line to support the IRA, which passed last fall.
Right, I mean, that was sort of a difference maker in why Build Back Better didn't pass, but Inflation Reduction Act did. It was kind of Manchin's baby, and this was one of the things they offered him to make that more palatable.
This was really, really kind of the carrot they dangled. So, if they can't help him on this, then I expect they will get a lot of flack from him.
It'd be like the Manchin Reduction Act at that point.
Exactly,
Yeah.
Exactly. And he's made a lot of threats and, really, really talked a big game in pressuring the Biden administration to push this through. So certainly not, and doesn't seem afraid to stand up to the administration on a number of things.
Sure, definitely, especially given that he's maybe up for re-election next year, and it's a tough state for Democrats right now.
Exactly, certainly making a name for himself.
So in a state that's not quite so tough for Democrats, but very important to them nonetheless, California, Gavin Newsom's got a little bit of a battle going on with the oil companies. Talk about what's the contours of this are.
So basically, this is in response to Gavin Newsom's the recent bill that he signed into law in late March. Basically, that seeks to allows the California Energy Commission the authority to put a cap on gas profits if they exert a certain amount. This is really in response to last summer's record high gas prices, and he said that the state must act with an urgency to pass something ahead of summer, just in case that prices do really ramp up. Because remember, oil companies recorded their biggest ever profits last year.
Sure.
So in response, Big Oil has launched really this huge lobbying blitz in California. They've poured nearly $10 million into the state in the first quarter of 2023 alone in an effort to kind of stop this legislation or get it retooled, which was actually sort of effective. The final text of the bill, which was signed into law, looks nothing like the original legislation that Newsom introduced in November.
Big Oil has to figure out, sometimes you win some Sometimes you nuisance.
I like that. Yes, exactly.
Thank you, Breanne.
Thank you, Jim.
You can read Breanne and subscribe to our Daily on Energy newsletter at washingtonexaminer.com.